wake to the smell of fresh bread drifting through the narrow window of your tiny room in the Baixa district. November 1st, 1755, All Saints' Day. The most sacred morning of the year in Lisbon, and the churches are already filling with thousands of souls lighting candles for the dead. You're a dock worker, third class. Nobody special. Just another face in a city of 200,000 people who believe Lisbon is blessed by God himself. The Portuguese capital gleams with gold from Brazil, with spices from the Orient, with the arrogance of an empire that spans the world. You pull on your worn shirt and step into the cobblestone street where neighbors are already heading to morning mass. The air is warm for November, almost unnaturally calm. Not a whisper of wind. The Tagus River lies flat as polished glass. You don't go to church with the others. Your shift at the docks starts early, even on holy days, because ships don't stop arriving just because priests are praying. You walk through streets that smell like incense and fish, past grand palaces with marble facades and gilded balconies, past the royal palace right on the waterfront where King Jose Fern himself is preparing for Mass. The city rises in terraces from the river, climbing hills crowned with churches and monasteries, their bells beginning to ring across the morning. 9:30. You notice a woman in a black shawl pausing at a corner, staring at the sky with a strange expression. There are no clouds, just endless empty blue. She crosses herself and hurries on. At the docks, you're coiling rope beside a merchant ship when you feel it. A tremor. So slight you think you imagined it. The water in the harbor shivers. A sailor nearby stops mid-step, his face going pale. "Did you?" he starts to say. Then the world breaks apart. The ground beneath your feet doesn't just shake. It heaves, it rolls, it bucks like a living thing trying to throw you off. The cobblestones ripple in waves. The stone walls of the customs house crack with sounds like cannon fire. You fall to your knees, hands clawing at earth that won't stay still. And the roar is like every thunderstorm you've ever heard happening at once, deep in the belly of the earth. It lasts forever. 40 seconds that feel like 40 years. Buildings you've walked past your entire life fold in on themselves. Floors pancaking, walls collapsing outward in massive clouds of white dust. The screaming starts, the screaming from every direction. When the shaking stops, you stagger to your feet. The docks are destroyed. Ships have snapped their moorings and crashed into each other. But worse, far worse, you turn toward the city and see hell. Entire neighborhoods have vanished into rubble. The churches, packed with thousands of worshippers and their candles, are burning. Black smoke pours into that perfect blue sky. You can hear it now. The muffled cries from beneath collapsed buildings, the frantic digging, the prayers and curses mixing together. People are stumbling through the streets covered in white dust and blood, looking like ghosts, searching for family members, for anyone. The royal palace is severely damaged. The patriarch's palace has collapsed entirely. In the wealthy neighborhoods on the hills, massive stone mansions have slid down into the lower city, crushing the poor who lived below. You start running toward your street, toward your room, even though some part of you already knows. The Baixa district, the low-lying heart of Lisbon where you lived, is flattened. You can see it from here. The wooden buildings have splintered like kindling. You're dodging fallen beams and bodies and people who grab at you, begging for help digging out their children. An old man sits in the middle of a street holding a crucifix, rocking back and forth, whispering prayers that make no sense. A child wanders past, maybe 7 years old, face blank with shock, calling for her mother in a voice so small it breaks something in you. Then someone shouts. You don't understand the words at first, but you see them, dozens of people running back toward the river, terror in their eyes. You turn, and you see it building on the horizon. The Tagus River is pulling back from the shore, exposing the muddy bottom, exposing shipwrecks that have been underwater for decades. The water is gathering itself, rising, growing. If this moment, the calm before the end, chills you to the bone, hit subscribe and comment. Which forgotten disaster should we live through next? The wave comes. 3 waves actually, but the first one is what you'll remember if you survive the next 60 seconds. 10 meters high, some witnesses will later say. Maybe 15. A wall of dark water carrying ships and debris and bodies, smashing into what's left of the waterfront with the force of divine wrath. You're already running uphill, lungs burning, legs screaming, but the water is faster. It swallows the docks, the customs house, the lower streets of Baisha. It reaches into the city like fingers, flooding basements and first floors, drowning people who survived the earthquake by hiding in doorways. The wave retreats, sucking debris and bodies back into the harbor, and then it comes again, and again. Each time a little weaker, but the damage is absolute. You make it to higher ground, collapsing beside a broken fountain. From here you can see the full horror. Lisbon is burning. The earthquake knocked over thousands of candles in hundreds of churches, and now firestorms are racing through the rubble, feeding on wooden beams and furniture and tapestries and books. Feeding on 3,000 years of accumulated wealth and history. The fire will burn for 6 days. It will consume the royal archives, irreplaceable maps of Portuguese explorations, artwork, libraries containing the only copies of manuscripts from ancient Rome. The Ribera Palace burns. The Opera House burns. The Hospital of All Saints, where the injured are being taken, catches fire and burns with the patients still inside. Their screams carrying across the ruined city. You sit there covered in dust and river water, watching your world end, and you understand something terrible. This wasn't random. The earthquake hit at 9:30 in the morning on All Saints' Day, when every church in the city was packed to capacity with worshipers. The candles they lit for the dead started the fires that killed the living. The tsunami came because Lisbon built its wealth and power right on the waterfront, because the royal palace itself sat vulnerable at the river's edge. The stone buildings that collapsed were built heavy and ornate to show off imperial glory, with no thought for how they'd behave when the earth moved. The poor died because they lived in the valleys and lowlands where the wave could reach them. The rich died because their hillside mansions slid down onto the poor. Between 60,000 and 100,000 people died that morning. A third of the city, maybe more. Nobody will ever count them all. In the days after, the Prime Minister, the Marquis of Pombal, will take control. He'll organize rescue efforts, prevent looting, hang criminals from makeshift gallows to restore order. He'll ask engineers a question no one thought to ask before. What if we built cities that could survive this? Lisbon will be rebuilt with Europe's first earthquake-resistant buildings, with wide streets for fire breaks, with regulations and science instead of just faith. But right now, in this moment, you're sitting on broken ground watching smoke rise from the grave of everything you knew, and you realize something about human beings. We build our greatest cities on fault lines and coastlines. We stack our churches with candles. We trust that what stood yesterday will stand tomorrow. We call things unsinkable, unbreakable, unthinkable, right up until the moment the earth moves beneath our feet. The Lisbon earthquake didn't just destroy a city. It shook the faith of an entire continent. Philosophers across Europe asked how a good God could destroy Lisbon on the holiest day of the year, killing the faithful while they prayed. Voltaire wrote Candide to mock the idea that this was the best of all possible worlds. The Age of Enlightenment pushed forward, driven partly by the rubble of Lisbon, by the understanding that maybe we needed science and reason more than we needed blind faith. The disaster gave birth to seismology, to systematic disaster response, to the idea that we could study catastrophes and prevent them instead of just accepting them as divine punishment. You survive, somehow. You'll help rebuild. You'll tell your grandchildren about the morning the world ended and began again. But you'll never forget the smell of burning churches, the sight of the river rising, the sound of a city screaming all at once. Like this video, if these buried stories deserve to be remembered, what unsinkable thing in your life scares you the most?